Hello, and welcome to another video of Sean's Check-In. To catch up on more videos I've done, feel free to follow my professional Facebook page, Sean P. Daughtry, LICSW, or follow me over on YouTube at Sean D, Sean's Little Check-In, or Sean's Check-In. Today I wanted to talk about a more difficult topic that I think is important to cover. It's a pretty big one, so I'll just touch upon main points and highlights of it with the understanding that it can be explored further for each and every one of you who are watching this to whatever degree you feel it applies to you or to someone you know, even if it doesn't apply to you. And that's the topic of when to let go of toxic relationships in one's life. And that can be toxic relationships in one's family of origin, or married in family, or with a boss or a coworker or a friend, or any number of other places. So those whole areas are places that toxic relationships can come up. And what I mean by toxic relationship is one where it does certainly not feel fully reciprocal, or maybe part of the time it's reciprocal. And I've talked about reciprocal relationships in a previous video where there's this equal feeling of positive exchange on some steady basis more than not. Where you feel that it's an energizing, positive experience being in relationship with a person. And that it's this nice, natural exchange of care and interest going back and forth. Again, I did talk about that in a video last week on reciprocal relationships. So in any case, toxic relationships are all over the place, and they can certainly be informed by a number of factors, such as ongoing substance abuse. If a person is caught in a real addictive cycle of substance abuse or some other behaviors that's not substance related, but such as gambling, that certainly intrudes heavily upon a relationship with another person or relationships with other people in general, and therefore feels toxic for someone at the other end of that dynamic where one person is caught in an addictive cycle with a substance or behavior. And there's a lot of support around getting out of those and getting perspective with those, such as through Al-Anon, Alcoholics Anonymous, and the different 12-step programs and smart recovery programs for that matter too. So that's like one area, for example, of how a toxic relationship can come up because of addiction. Another is around things like mood volatility. If a person has a lot of volatility with their moods, intense ups and downs, unpredictability with how they are acting, they seem okay one moment, and then they fly off the handle into a rage the next. And if that's happening on a recurring, frequent basis, or to some extent pretty often, that's built into to relating with a person, that can certainly feel very toxic to someone who's at the other end of that. And that can be for a number of reasons. Perhaps the person is what we call in psychotherapy, in mental health circles, possibly due to a personality disorder, such as borderline personality disorder or narcissistic personality disorder, or short of that, the person could be on the spectrum towards having that. They have significant traits, even if they don't completely, fit the diagnosis of a personality disorder. And that would be something to sort out with a mental health professional. If you talked at length with them about that am I dealing with someone in my life who might have some personality disorder that is really getting in the way of me feeling like I can comfortably, happily relate to them on a regular, steady basis and come away feeling consistently more good about myself than not. There are a number of other factors too that can inform relationships being toxic. And in a short video, I can't be exhaustive about all of those. But what I can say is that it's important to evaluate in your life if you are feeling, or someone you know is feeling consistently low self-esteem, not very effective in their lives, perhaps dealing with a lot of depression and or anxiety. It's important to evaluate what are the active relationships that you or a person you know are involved in their lives that inform in some way, to some extent, how they feel about themselves as they or you live in the world. You have a birthright to live a fulfilling life where you connect comfortably, reciprocally with those around you who you choose to have in your life. If you're in a work environment where a boss is very problematic, obviously that is not easy to just get out of. As best as possible, obviously look for a new job and get away from that boss if you can. If it's a friend, perhaps you need to reevaluate that friendship. If it's a family member and someone you, for example, who you grew up with, that is obviously a more entrenched kind of relationship. We all learn to tolerate what's normal when we're growing up. And as children, what we grow up with is the normal we know. Until as an adult, often you find out normal can be better than what you knew as normal as a child. For example, with a substance abusing parent or an emotionally volatile and abusive parent. That is something that as you grow up, you have freedom to finally get away from and not to maintain in adulthood if there is no prospect of the other party changing. And of course, we can't change anyone around us, just ourselves. So where do you go from there if you sense and start to evaluate that maybe someone in your life is really impacting your well-being in a negative way? Perhaps what will be indicated for you or someone you know is to narrow a certain relationship down to more of a gray rocking kind of dynamic, where you gray rock with the person, meaning that you have exchanges be limited in time, superficial, and non-emotional, and more an exchange about facts and superficial information like the weather and sports, for example. So maybe it's a decrease in frequency and intensity of what you talk about. Excuse me. Or perhaps at one very extreme end, no contact may be indicated. And if it's with a family member who you've grown up with, that is much easier said than done often. So how to proceed with evaluating what's most indicated for you to get out of a toxic relationship or toxic set of relationships, or for someone you know, is to talk with some trusted friend or friends or a support group, or certainly talk to a psychotherapist who can really help you, if they do their job well with you, gain perspective and come to a sense of what makes sense for you with boundaries around a toxic relationship or set of relationships that may be in your or someone's life. You have a choice to lead a happier life with those around you who are in your life. There certainly is in family systems often a sense that we have to stay connected with our family we grew up with because family sticks together. If sticking together with a family member means that you will continue to feel bad about yourself, like you're not doing things right, and your self-esteem continues to feel low because you have continued to tolerate a negative exchange to a significant degree with a family member, it's time to possibly reevaluate how you want that person in your life in order for you to lead a more happy, fulfilling, connected feeling life in the world with those around you. Wherever you have choice, it's your right to exercise fully your choices. You do not have to stay in any toxic relationship with anyone if it is impacting you negatively with your well-being. That said, that is often easier said than done. Some people are in domestic partnerships or marriages, if you will, where there's an abuser and it's hard for economic reasons, or if you have children, or for both, or any number of other reasons to just get out of that relationship. But it is good to evaluate and find ways over time as best you can to extricate yourself out of toxic relationships, of which there are so many different situations. Again, that is easier said than done, but wherever you can find support, such as with a therapist and good trusted friends, or a combination thereof, to get more and more perspective, go for it. We all have a birthright to lead happy, fulfilling lives where no one is undermining us in any way around that. Now, one aspect here that I haven't touched upon, except very briefly, which is narcissism. Some relationships are narcissistically informed by a person who is seemingly, first of all, relentlessly self-centered and doing a lot of behaviors to maintain that self-centeredness, doing a lot of controlling behaviors to keep you feeling off your feet and keeping them the focus of attention. Narcissistic personality disorder, or traits thereof that are significantly indicative of some of that disorder, is a whole other complex thing to deal with that can lead to being in toxic relationships. Now, Dr. Ramani is someone on YouTube who is very informed about narcissistic relationships and people who cope with those kinds of relationships. I recommend watching her on her YouTube channel, Dr. Ramani, R-A-M-A-N-I. And that is a very helpful resource. I hope I've touched upon enough today to get people started watching this, thinking about evaluating who is in their lives that is possibly contributing to an ongoing sense of lack of well-being, such as depression, low self-esteem, anxiety, and any combination thereof, so that you can move more freely into a better life and then begin the deep healing work of any past damage that has been left inside of you from being in a toxic relationship or sets of toxic relationships. Take care, everyone, and may you live stable, happy lives without toxic relationships as best as possible.